Welcome to Doing the Thing podcast with your host, myself, Scott Boersma. And today on our show is Ian. Ian and I met about a decade ago at a place called Pali, where we were doing overnight in cabin with fifth graders primarily, doing things and really just being exhausted half the time. Ian, it has been so long since I've talked with Ian, and he is now in Greece, has started some life coaching business, and is happily married and a kid on the way. Welcome, Ian.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Scott. Stoked to be here. I think it's really cool to hear what's like coming out of all of these kinds of people that we worked with 10 years ago, right? And to see and get to be a part of what you're doing is awesome. I really appreciate it. I think to give you some level of like background on myself since the 10 years ago that we last saw each other. Since then, I started up a career in wilderness therapy for 8 years after pretty much immediately after Pali. I went into working and guiding for North Carolina for a while and then moved to Southeast Alaska and did that on more of a extreme level of like 50-day canoe trips with kids out in the backcountry. And that was awesome. It got me really inspired and stoked. And then I hit the wall that I think a lot of us in the outdoor industry do, where it's like, okay, I can't really guide full time anymore. And moved into, I went and moved up to Anchorage with my now wife and got my master's in outdoor and environmental education. And then took that, did some exploring. We're global, moved around stupid number of times, but now we're here. And I am doing some level of international education, but my primary thing right now is exactly that of coaching, doing transition coaching for people going through big changes and hosting group retreats that do incorporate outdoor activity and outdoor adventure more so than what I can do online from my very isolated house in the middle of, to any American, is nowhere, Greece.
Right, and how far are you away from your nearest town?
We're like 20 minutes up the mountain from a village of like 3,000 people, but Athens is like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, you're pretty, that's probably about where most people are in America, at least as far as outdoor people go.
Yeah, sure.
So what was the point where you like finally were like, I need to start moving out of guiding? Is there a specific moment for that, or was it a gradual over time?
Love, I think, did it. I met my partner, and I was like I said, working these like insane trips, right, where it was just like lengthwise being gone for like 45, 50 days at a time. And we formed our relationship by sending literal handwritten letters across the world because she lived in Europe and I was guiding in the middle of Southeast Alaska. And so it was like every week I would write a letter, send it off on a boat. It would do its whole thing to get to her, and then she would send me a letter back. And so I'd sit there like on the edge of my seat waiting every Wednesday or whatever day the boat came for a letter, hopefully. And I just, COVID happened. And then once COVID happened and we were all like let go, better life of like living my full-time existence with her and our dog, and like doing that kind of pushed me to not go back into those long stretches in the field, which was really hard. It's a hard thing to accept, and it's something I still really miss, but it was time for a shift. Yeah.
Right, because you probably have over 1,000 days in the backcountry then? Even more than that?
Yeah. I think professionally, wilderness racked up just shy of like having spent maybe 3 years living in the field.
You were doing that year round, right? You weren't doing that seasonally as far as that goes?
Yeah, I was. North Carolina was, we operated year round. Southeast Alaska, they took a break from like December to February, and March was when we all came back for training. But those November shifts still felt real cold.
Real cold. How did you get into doing outdoor stuff? And then what was the transition to wilderness therapy?
Honestly, it started with I think like a lot of people I talked to, it started with summer camp. I was always kind of an outdoorsy kid. My mom talks about me going down to the creek all the time and coming home covered in mud, whatever. And then my camp happened, and that was 970 acres of forest, right? So it's like very much so beautiful deciduous forests of Southern Illinois. And that just kind of drove me to doing anything I could to get myself back outside. And that meant I got my undergrad degree in environmental education just because I was like, that sounds like something I can go do outside. And like, didn't really know anything else. And then worked as an outdoor educator for a year before moving and doing Pali for a little bit. And then after that, I continued on the path of environmental education and moved to North Carolina to do a job at a state park. And it was fine. It was great. The people were really nice. The place was nice. And the summer previous, I had led my summer, I'd gone back to my summer camp and worked there, and I was leading their adventure camps. And so I had the student who was great. And then a year later, when I was like working this job in North Carolina, found out that he had taken his own life. And so I had this moment of very deep need to go do something more impactful and do something more helpful or like clinical or whatever. I wanted to do more. And so that's when I all of the stories of wilderness therapy and my friends who were like worked it for a month and woke up with kids with knives over me and like whatever came into my mind. And I was very quick to like quit my job and move 4 hours west into the mountains of North Carolina and take up wilderness, and then couldn't leave. Didn't want to leave it ever, really.
That is like incredible that you hear all of those horror stories and are like, yes, I want to do that.
Yeah, and maybe it's like a little bit of a messed up part of my brain, but it was also like exciting, and it proved to be very true and very exciting and great for me.
So then what, as far as like this go, what's like the transformation that you've had over the course of the last, your time in the outdoors working, whether it's like at Pali or doing wilderness therapy?
Huge, massive, grand scale. I think it just like kind of outdoors in general kind of taught me who I was and who I am today, still learning. And from the time that knew me, I was a mess, right? I was an absolute huge partier. And that's like what I did. And that lived on for a few more years. But then in a therapeutic setting, I also like just spent so much time outside thinking about life in general. Got me sober, and now am like 5 years totally sober and having a child, which is like a massive shift from anything I could ever have said a decade ago at Pali I would be looking for. Yeah, so it's like a huge, huge shift. I'm certain if I ever went down a different road, I would be probably pretty miserable. So I think for me, it was like life-saving.
Just to like put it in perspective for people, one distinct memory that I have of Ian is like we're like have our student groups from the school and we have them all lined up, and Ian is like so rebellious that he's like, we're gonna have a blob and everybody needs to gather around the pole. And there definitely was people that just like hated that, and then there was me that, yeah, whatever, like not my problem.
My kids loved it, and it was fun, and I thought it was supposed to be fun, so I wanted to do fun things. And then we would like get let in last for dinner because I made them not line up.
Do you have any students who like hated that, or were they just like, yeah, whatever?
To be honest, I don't have any memory of a kid not doing it, but I have plenty of memories of kids being like, I don't want to line up. That sounds horrible. I do that all the time.
Because like to me fundamentally it was also like you were accomplishing what needed to be accomplished too, right? Of like you had your kids, they were doing what you wanted them to be doing, they were like all in one space, all accounted for, so what difference does it make? Everybody else is hanging out talking with each other for the most part, or kind of browbeat them into lining up.
We can go inside and drink our like 18 different colored sodas and like
Right. the 18 different colored soda that we weren't supposed to be doing, but we definitely used as an incentive. Hashtag Sprite
Exactly.
is sparkly water. So that's really awesome that you've come that way, though. I also remember that Millville crew that was also just like doing some things, and I was like, yes, I'm so glad I am not in this house.
Yeah, there's like an hour and a half documentary we made on YouTube that still exists that I'm pretty ashamed to exist out there. So it's like another message to any young kids watching or listening is like, just don't record yourself and don't put it on the internet. It's regretful.
Yes, it's in the same line of being in middle school and then having adults come up and talk to you about how, oh yeah, like I knew when I was like changing your diapers, and I knew when you were this big, and you're like, okay, shut up.
Yeah.
As far as like, what's been like one specific moment that stands out to you as like this being away for 40 to 50 days is like worth it?
Yeah, so many. I think that it was just there's like two that come to mind, and the one that really stands out is like sitting there with this girl who's struggling so much in life, and like her whole issue was like, struggling with feeling so small and insignificant and not having the power to really change that and show up in the world in the way that she wanted to. And we're sitting there like late at night after everyone else has really gone to bed. It's like me, one staff member, and her, and she's depressed and can't go to bed. And there was just this moment of like all of these fireflies just like kind of came out of the woods and lit up around us and did this like super magical, beautiful, like fairy tale type shit where it's amazing, and it brings with it this like really nice message of like small things are beautiful and small things can also like shine, and like you don't, if you feel small, like how do you channel that? And from that day and that moment that like the world provided her with, or whoever you think it may be, she like flourished. And those were the things that like being out there for such a long time and forming a relationship so intimately with the people that I was working with allowed for the like trust and the care and the love to shine through, so that people could see themselves differently and people could be more open to the change that they were seeking, that I think so many of us who work in it have experienced and felt. But people that aren't, that are coming to us as like customers or clients, students, don't have that background inside of it, and the way that we can and have like put that relationship piece into action is kind of showing them the power of it all and the beauty of it. And that one was just like huge because it was instantly transformational. It's like the world gave us what we needed right then.
What's the other story that you have popping in your head?
Yeah. The other one was super tough, like he was in and out of juvie for ages and ages and ages. And we worked with him and we struggled with him. We struggled and struggled because he was difficult. He was a really sad, upset kid. And he had a terrible home life. He came to us. Me and my two other co-guides were leaving. We were done. Like the kids stayed on for another like 30 days, but we left the field and new guides came in. And at that switch, this like super tough kid came up to us and just started bawling and let everything go, because he had never experienced being cared for in that way, and he had never experienced like having pure joy and freedom to be himself in his life at all, let alone for such an extended period of time. It was funny because he was like trying to like tell us all of these things, that he was like, sorry I did this, I'm so sorry I was like this, like you guys made such a change, and whatever. We had a great time. Like he was a cool kid, and seeing him realize that he had that capacity was really what he was feeling at that moment. And being able to like pass that to him, but also having to walk away is crazy hard to do. Yeah.
I think that's one of the worst things about this industry is that you like give up so much time, whether it's like a week or like a month or months. I always feel like whenever I'm in that situation, I always feel like there's like a breakthrough that like happens at least with one kid, and it's like, okay, great, now you're like on your way. That's like super awesome for those kids to have that moment. But have you had any moments like that for yourself?
Yeah, I think like too many to count. Like spending the first job I worked was 8 days on, 6 off, like a lot of shift work. And so it would be like, great, 8 days of work and then 6 days of like letting loose, which I think is one of these parts of the outdoor industry when you're 21 years old is super appealing and enticing and like this is fun. And when you're a little bit older inside of the field, you're like, oh, this is a problem. It's like this shouldn't be this way. Uh, and then so I spent the like next following 8 days of work, usually just like deeply considering my choices, my actions of the week prior, and went through so many like breakups or like false relationships, the end of those through the field. And like it was the work and the stuff that came along with like existing outside was healing in a beautiful way to get me back to like my center, but also like great, that just gave me another space to like feel emotionally ready to go and jump into another relationship even faster than maybe what most people did, however many years. It's just like a terrible cycle. But I think I had, yeah, those moments were like every time you come back from a shift of, it doesn't even matter. It can be like a 2-day weekend in the woods, and you go into the supermarket afterwards and you're like, whoa, what is this place? Why have we built a world around this instead of like what's out there? And people look at you like you are crazy because you smell, you're dirty, and you're dealing with that transition out of being in the woods, and they're dealing with that transition of you stepping up into their cash register line.
I hate coming back out of the field for the most part too. What do you think like the outdoor industry needs? Like whether that's, front country, what I call Pali life of front country outdoor ed to like backcountry outdoor ed to like wilderness therapy. What do you think? If you had the power, what would you do?
So many things. I can think of like for the industry itself, I can also think of a few things for like the people that work inside of it. For the industry itself, I am distraught by what is happening inside of the cancel culture of wilderness therapy. And I get it. It's not that I like don't believe that bad things have happened, but I think that the good things that have happened have like gone unnoticed and have been swept under the rug to highlight the bad. And I don't know, it's hard. It's a hard topic to say that I want to fix because a lot of people feel very emotional about it, and understandably so. For a lot of people that have experienced trauma inside of the field, my heart goes out to them, and that sucks. If I could like snap my fingers, like bring back a holistic, healthy, good, positive version of wilderness therapy into all the places that it's been lost, without a doubt, I would do it because I believe so fully in it and want to see it come back in a better way and make a newer, holistic, universally welcomed approach, I guess, in the way that we're not yanking kids out of their beds and we're not like causing trauma with like power thirsty instructors and all of the different problems that people have had. I think the outdoor industry can really benefit from it in terms of the people that work for it and the students that go through it and the industry as a whole, because there's a lot of space for it and a lot of good things did come from it and probably still do for the 2 places that are still open, but they're all closing down like crazy. So that's definitely one that I think about. I think for the in terms of like the outdoor industry as a career, I don't know how to say it, but I just want the people to be recognized as being more legit, right? It's hard work, both physically and emotionally and every which way, in every part of the outdoor industry, that people are like, yep, daughter's like a ski bum, she's a lifty, that's it. You're like, cool, there's a lot more behind that, and like the perspective of the people working in the outdoor industry is pretty low. A lot of times it's like, whoa, that's super cool, but then when it comes down to like people talking about purpose and people talking about a life well lived, they're way less likely to like really see that and really appreciate it and acknowledge how hard it is. I think that people working in the outdoor industry don't get enough credit for the level of work that they're doing. It's more like, that's a phase. you'll be through that stage sometime soon. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh, I think that's what my parents think too. And here I am a decade into it being like, okay, like how do I do this without being inside of it? Is there anything else that comes up for you of wish were different for the
Mm.
industry?
I mean, it'd be really cool to see people getting paid what they're worth. For the most part, outdoor industry jobs are paid so poorly, but the industry itself brings in a ton of money. And that is just not going to its employees, and it's not going to people like us who are doing the frontline work, because frontline workers always get the lowest. It's like the like two triangles next to each other of like we get the least amount of pay and it goes up to everyone else, but like all of the work comes down to us as well. So we're doing the most but getting the least in terms of finances. And I think that's one of the things that I hear people say they're moving on from work in the outdoors, is because they're not getting paid enough. And in a lot of places, it's not a living wage anymore. I think that that's something that needs to be looked at, because the longer you stay in it, the better you are. And the better you are at it, the more like transformational the experiences become, I think, for a lot of people that are looking for this, that, or the other experience outside. And those are the things that are so powerful.
Thanks for sharing. Are you ready to move on to rapid fire questions?
Yeah, sure.
Great. What is your favorite thing to eat on trail?
Whatever's in front of me, dirt.
Do you have a favorite thing that you like to cook in the backcountry?
The pasta noodle sides, because I'm really lazy at the end of the day.
Do you have any adventures planned at this point?
A kid, but other than having a baby, we're planning to hike the Pindos Way in Greece with the baby as soon as he can.
Like when he's walking or when they're walking? Or like just
I think he'll be in my backpack, I'm sure.
Have you seen the Dirtbag Baby? Those people that hike the AT with their kid and like change diapers and all that stuff?
No, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah, they had I think that's what it's maybe they changed it, but they had an Instagram that's called the Dirtbag Baby. They might have changed the name because their kid is now grown up, but it's been done before, so you can do it.
Nice. Yeah, that's the goal.
Favorite place that you visited?
So many places. Astonishing and surprising was this spot in Greece called Zumerka. Kind of sounds like Jamaica, because it's very not what you picture when you're here. It's like Tzoumerka, and it's just like a world outside of this one. Really, really, really cool and wild and neat to see. We did a bike packing trip there.
Cool. To kind of wrap things up then, do you want to share your contact info if anybody wants to get a hold of you and explore potentially working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing coaching one-on-one and also starting up a lot of group stuff. My website is just ianstandard.com, and all of my contact info is on there, plus my social media, because I do that now. Part of it. It's not my favorite part of the job, but I don't hate it most days. I think it's important. But also, you can just come to here, and if you ever come to Parnassos Mountain in Greece, then that's the best way to get a hold of me. Ask for the one American here, and I'll be here.
Come to this town and just be like, so I'm looking for the other American.
It'll work.
I'm sure it will. Well, Ian, thank you for being on. It was great to have you, and best of luck.
Yeah, man. Right back at you. Appreciate being here.